Yu-Gi-Oh's not the same anymore.
You could say it's a little different.
This is something that we see said so much, I think, over the years. Like, it's been a constant conversation.
So incredibly constant. I remember sitting in a parking lot outside of a card shop. Two guys walked by and they were just like, man, I think a tournament had just ended and they were just like, man, Yu-Gi-Oh's so different now. The cards don't work the same. Like, even though my card, my deck doesn't even do what it's supposed to do anymore.
Yeah.
Link monsters, special summoning.
And I think, like, it's a conversation that has been persistent. Like, you'll hear that today, but I was hearing that 5 years ago, like 10 years ago. Like, there's always this nebulous idea of like what the good old days were in Yu-Gi-Oh! And like how it's in some way gone wrong.
I mean, I think for every person, there is a good old days, and right beyond it is a cliff of some kind that
Right.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Just jumped down and they could not get back to their good old days anymore.
And so what I wanted to explore today is, what is that inflection point? Like, when did Yu-Gi-Oh! Become this unrecognizable kind of just thing that it is today? Because I do think that there are a lot of parts of Yu-Gi-Oh! That are distinctly just different. They're not what they were.
Honestly, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has never been the same since that one anime-only season.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep,
I'm sure there's someone who...
that's when it was.
That's
right
someone's
there.
breaking point. But in all honesty, we are going to explore it. We kind of have a list of things that we thought like kind of just contributed, because like anything in the world, it's multifaceted.
Oh yeah.
And disclaimer, by the way, this isn't us saying that one is better than the other. We literally are both, like, we both have modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks, and we also played a bunch of old school Yu-Gi-Oh!
And honestly, looking at our list, that Yu-Gi-Oh! Might have had like 5 or 6 different forms.
Yeah, like the answer might surprise you.
There's some nuance to it.
Yeah, so don't just take this as like two angry Yu-Gi boomers say that they want to set Giant Soldier of Stone again. That's not what we're saying, but
And honestly, Giant Soldier of Stone was way overstated for the time, let's just be honest.
That's also true. So yeah, we're gonna be exploring this in good faith. You don't have to worry. In fact, to say that you're not worried, you can even leave a thumbs up. At a glance, without like, thinking too much about it, what is old Yu-Gi-Oh! To you? When you hear just like old Yu-Gi-Oh! What was good old days of Yu-Gi-Oh!
It's changed a bit over the years, because especially since we started doing retro formats, I really got to kind of redefine what was old to me. But I think old Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like before we really had archetypes.
Yeah.
Back when like you maybe had 3 search cards in your entire deck.
Like Mystic Tomatoes, Zangan type stuff.
Like
maybe
like
a Rhoda.
floaters were how you searched.
Yeah, okay.
Like, games lasted, 7, 8, 10 turns.
Yeah, very like elongated games. Anything come to mind almost like visually, stylistically?
I always think about the original paper playmat that came with the Yugi and Kaiba starter decks. That thing just screams old Yu-Gi-Oh!
Screams
to me.
retro.
Because like so many of us had them. Like I didn't even know like rubber or cloth playmats existed for so many years.
There were so many kids where like, I mean, we really were holding on to those paper mats.
Oh, for as long as
holding on
I was
to them.
taping mine together.
Yeah, I remember holding on to paper mats. What characters? Like, is it just, for you, is it just like Yugi, Kaiba, like Pegasus, Joey type thing? Is Jaden in there anywhere?
My first thought, of course, is DM characters. But when I think about the actual cards that are in like the old Yu-Gi-Oh! Section of my brain, it certainly stretches into GX.
Further.
Like, because GX had archetypes, but we weren't really archetyping,
So when my view of old Yu-Gi-Oh! Is actually a little different. I mean, it's a lot of the same stuff. It's actually more of almost like a period, like a slice of time. Like I have a vision of how life was back then. So, and I think that's gonna kind of
back when a man could be a man.
Whatever that means. Like back in, I was in grade school. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was culturally in a different place. So I remember like, I went to a water park and there was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament. I remember going to Books A Million, like my mom taking me to Books A Million.
Think of a more harrowing place to play a card game than a water
Terrifying.
park.
We played a card game tournament. We played like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament at this this water park called like Watertown or something. And the tournament was happening like under a little gazebo, kind of off It was like in the park, but it was just a few feet away from not a few feet from the pool. The point is, we were really close to a lot of water, and there were a bunch of kids.
There was a waterfall
and
right
there were a bunch of kids jumping, just like getting out, like just walk right out of the pool and walk over to a table and like play Yu-Gi-Oh. Just
Nope.
Wet. Yeah, horrible. But anyway, you know, I think of like Books A Million, this water park tournament. I remember once there was like a tournament at like a Walmart once. I remember like Yu-Gi-Oh! Skateboards, dual discs on the shelves. It was almost like a period of time. This was kind of that lightning in a bottle moment where Yu-Gi-Oh! Was just, you know, waking up, watching it on like, was the Fox box? Was that when Yu-Gi-Oh! Was on? 4Kids?
4Kids, Fox. Yeah, that was
like
Fox.
like all these things.
Wait, or was that the...
Whatever it was, Kids WB. It was Kids WB.
WB.
It was WB. And like, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! After school, Battle City starting, and it was always on Saturdays. There was eventually a point where they would do like double header episodes. It was a very, my lifestyle was centered around that Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think that's gonna probably be relevant later because I do think that oftentimes nostalgia can get muddled with life at the time for you.
I do think we look so fondly on old Yu-Gi-Oh! Because we were kids. Life for at least most people as kids is way easier than adult life.
It's very simple.
No responsibilities.
And easy.
Like the worst part of your day was chores. Like,
yeah.
that's crazy. I wish I could go back. I want to do chores.
No, just chores. That's like it. Maybe you made a bad grade on a test or whatever. Okay. So the first thing I figure is like a neat starting point. We're gonna talk card game stuff and like anime, just franchisey
yeah, it's kind
stuff.
of more of a holistic look at Yu-Gi-Oh.
I would argue GX. The introduction of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, I think, was the first time where I remember some people I knew being like, this isn't Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore. And to people listening, that's gonna sound crazy. Because I think today, like, GX gets lumped in with the Yu-Gi Boomers, right?
Yeah,
like that whole
but
conversation.
It makes a lot of sense why people would have felt like that when GX first came out. I mean, before GX came into existence, we did not know Yu-Gi-Oh! Could exist without the cast of DM.
Yeah,
we didn't
without
know
Yugi.
Yugi's name is a part of the card game, so the assumption was where Yu-Gi-Oh! Goes, Yugi follows.
Yeah.
But then this brown-haired kid named Jaden is the protagonist of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
And it's different. You don't know anybody. They're playing the same game, but like the setting is different.
They
and
immediately hit you with a new setting, new cards,
the cards are
new
different.
characters.
I remember actually seeing it for the first time on TV, and like my sister and I both liked Yu-Gi-Oh! Obviously, she doesn't care about any of this today. But like we were both big Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans.
She grew up.
Yeah, I remember when it came on TV, she's just like, oh, like who's this? Like I don't really want to watch it anymore. Not for any. It's just like it's kind of how it is. You get so familiar with a set of characters and it's a setting in general.
And it's not like Jaden was like similar to Yugi.
That's true.
I mean, he had much simpler hair compared to Yugi. He didn't even have a U in his name, or at least not that we knew of.
Yeah, not immediately. I mean, like Jaden Yuki,
but like
it didn't feel.
It wasn't right.
And I remember, you know, like everything felt unfamiliar, therefore hostility.
Yeah.
There were friends of mine who were like, they kind of assumed that this is just where Yu-Gi-Oh! Ends, like for them or maybe just collectively. And I think when you look at like, again, when you look at it today, everybody kind of lumps them together. But I do think that it's a good example of how like, when people have always been saying Yu-Gi-Oh's dead, Yu-Gi-Oh's dying, like here's where, this is the end, this is the point.
Yu-Gi-Oh's been dying for like
25 years.
20 years.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, yeah, I don't know what else. I wanted to bring up GX because I do feel like that was like the first time I remember. I think that's kind of when I actually got out of it, briefly. Because for me, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Started in 2002, quit in like 2005, got back in like 2008 or 9. So it's kind of interesting that, I don't think that I quit because of GX or anything really, but I did have like mixed feelings about it. And I think like that combined with whatever other interest at the time, I don't know, I got a Nintendo GameCube or something. It just sort of shifted my interest away from it.
I mean, I was super casual since the game came out, well through a lot of GX. There was a point, I don't know when my break with Yu-Gi-Oh! Came up. It had to have been somewhere in like between late middle school, entering high school was probably when I stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Because I really did not pick Yu-Gi-Oh up again until my senior year of high school.
What year was that? Because you're older than me. So.
That was 2011.
Okay. So really, like probably like 2010 even then.
Because I know for a fact I played in like 2005 because that was my second year of middle school and I was specifically getting like picked on and bullied for playing Yu-Gi-Oh on the schoolyard. That means I probably played it for at least one more year, 2006, and so maybe in like 07 to like 2011 was my break.
Okay, so I think like even looking at maybe the card designs from GX, do you think there was anything there? Like, and we're gonna get into archetypes later because I think that that's kind of its own category, but like GX was, I think, the introduction to like formal archetypes. Right. So that might have turned some people off to it.
For me, that was actually because in 05 I saw Ancient Gear Golem and I became absolutely obsessed with it. And so Ancient Gears was like kind of the first archetype I tried to get together.
It's interesting
unsuccessfly.
It's interesting because I do find that I think I liked that characters had a deck associated with them more so. Like one of the things that I remember noticing when I was watching Duel Monsters was the protagonist deck, as many iconic kind of cards as they had, they were mishmash decks.
Yep, just hodgepodges of things.
And, you know, that changed with GX. Like Jaden used Heroes, Cyrus used Roids, like, you know, Alexis had like the Cyber, like Skater, like there were things that reflected the character's personality. And I remember in DM, the only people who would typically sort of get that would be like the villains.
Yeah, antagonists.
Like they'd kind of like Weevil had his bugs and Rex had his dinos and stuff. And I think that legitimately there's an argument for both. Yep. Like, I think it's cool that there are people like Mako's just the fish duelist, the sea duelist. Like,
now I'm thinking about your water park story, and he did pop out the water and just start dueling.
And just start dueling. Yeah, there was a stadium there. Pegasus had it set up.
He still had to have been wet.
Not too wet to play cards. That sounds bad. No, but like, you know, I think like GX kind of, to me, that actually added to the appeal of GX. There were things I maybe didn't like about GX, but I think that each character having a deck like that was cool. And you could see it sort of reflected in the game itself, obviously. These archetypes started coming out. Most of them weren't even like great on release.
Oh, that's a fact. But for some people, Yugi not being the face of Yu-Gi-Oh anymore was enough of a reason to just hop off.
It's funny, actually. Did you know that Flaming Eternity, I think, is the last set that has Yugi on the pack?
Because he was on a lot of packs.
Well, up until then, Yugi was on every pack.
Was it every pack?
He was on every pack.
Every pack.
Legend of Blue Eyes, Spell Ruler, like Metal Raiders, all that stuff. There'd be a different picture of Yugi on each one. And I remember they would even like kind of slightly like change it when Battle City started. Like he kind of had more of his Battle City look. But like Yugi would always be on the packs. And I think it was either Ancient Sanctuary might have been the last one, and Flaming Eternity might be the first one that just did not have him. But either way, between those two sets, Yugi stopped being on the packs. And after a while, they replaced him with Jaden, but there was a period of time where like nobody was in the packs. It was just like Ancient Gear Golem was in the Lost Millennium and stuff like that. But like when you do think about it on a fundamental level, that probably was a turn-off for some people. Like it's unfamiliar.
It's new, and then I think everybody to some degree, especially when you're kids, you have that point when you're maturing and you're trying to take on like more adult thinking and ideas. And so if that Yu-Gi-Oh, if you were older and that Yu-Gi-Oh to GX transition happened and you were in that point in your life, it's way easier to just stop playing Yu-Gi-Oh than if you're still in elementary school and you're still just a dumb kid.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you know, like it's interesting because I think when GX started, just kind of looking at the card game bit again, a lot of the strongest cards from the DM era, I think, were still actually pretty prominent in the game.
Oh yeah, like I don't think early GX changed. Early GX didn't change.
Yeah, gameplay-wise, I don't think it changed much. It's funny. I mean, like people were still just using like Exiled Force and like Marauding Captain, Witch of the Black Forest, and Sang and BLS and. All of those types.
Did we get our first Monarchs yet? I think we were, right?
We were, yeah, GX kind of introduced them. I think the first Monarch technically came out before GX.
Because that was...
Grandmark's the first.
Oh, Grandmark was
Grandmark's first. Okay. I should look that up.
Yeah, for some reason I thought it was Thestalos. Yeah, I remember that the first few Monarchs came out before GX, but then GX brought it home. Like, Monarchs weren't Monarchs until we really got
Yeah, he was in
Gaius,
Flaming
right?
Eternity, so yeah, he was the first one. Yeah, it's interesting because I think like GX even had the same summoning types. Like it was just fusions and rituals. I don't even know that GX did rituals at all, did it? Like in the
Ooh.
show, I mean.
Ooh.
It didn't, I don't remember
I can't
introducing a
even
lot of.
think of a ritual monster from GX.
Yeah, I don't think that they were really doing that.
Cyber Angels are a ritual deck, but they're not like,
Yeah,
they're not really anime.
yeah, that's true. So yeah, that's GX. I just wanted to kind of bring that up. What else do you think? Anything come to mind?
I mean, I think another big point was 5Ds.
Yeah.
It's another anime point, but you know, it's broader than that. Like GX was weird because at least in the West, we actually never got the last season of GX.
That's true.
So I don't know if we truly had
A sense of closure with
a
it.
sense of closure. Yeah.
I think 5Ds is iconic for many reasons, but it is the first time that Yu-Gi-Oh! Introduced a summoning type.
Synchro what?
Right.
And that kind of gets into, I think, the card game space. Because up until now, we kind of just been talking about, oh, the anime felt like this or that. But 5Ds was like synchro summoning, synchro monsters. There is something new. These have a white border. They go in the extra deck. There's a new card called these tuner things. There's a mechanic you have to learn. And while I thought that 5Ds was cool, like, you know, there's a card games on motorcycles joke. This is when I remember people really being like, what is Yu-Gi-Oh! Doing? Like, this is stupid. I won't, I refuse. People said
I
that.
was one of those kind of cringy kids where when 5Ds came out, I was like, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to make it. They don't know what they're doing at Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, they're ruining Yu-Gi-Oh! This new
At the time, I
stuff.
didn't even know like Konami or anything. Like, these people they don't know what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. And I like hate watched the first few episodes.
I told you the story about the kid at my like library who called it flash summoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I mentioned that in that other video. Yeah, we did a video about like which summoning mechanic killed Yu-Gi-Oh! Great companion to this video if you want to watch that later.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, he called it like flash summoning because he just thought that's what it was called.
Which makes no sense because, well, they called it synchro summoning in the anime, and I don't know where else he'd hear that.
There was a kid who like hated just you say what did he? You say Fudo, I say shut up. That's what a kid said at my library. He didn't like Yusei and he didn't like 5Ds and
I thought the motorcycles were like silly and dumb. They took away from the real dueling. Oh God, I'm
yeah, I
cringing.
know.
I'm cringing.
I mean,
I'm
but
cringing.
hey, listen, but it's interesting because like, you know, again, I think 5Ds still feels like it's what people would call like the first half of the Yu-Gi-Oh!
I mean, the further along, like the further away we get from it all, the more everything starts to look like Yu-Gi Boomer.
Yeah.
Because I think at the time we would have drawn a hard line between GX and 5Ds and said, this is where it all changed. This is not like the good old Yu-Gi-Oh! Whatever.
Right.
What's going on right here, this is some new shit.
It's so funny to see how the Yu-Gi Boomer concept, I guess, has been present since like at least GX. The line has moved, but like, yeah, I mean, something else with 5Ds is just that it was where I think the start of like special summoning kind of being a prominent part gameplay wise. Because you had to special summon a lot more to get tuners onto the field. Mm-hmm. And so Junk Synchron, Debris Dragon, E-Telly, you know, like these archetypes like Blackwings and like, you know, Quillbolt Hedgehog and stuff, like Junk, like Road Warrior, all these, like they would summon themselves to the field. And that alone, I think, was a gameplay shift.
I mean, it was huge. I mean, I assume it was huge because I actually wasn't.
Yeah, because you weren't there at the advent.
Game. I heard, because I still would like turn on the TV in the morning, so I knew a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Was coming out, but at that point in my life, I wasn't really playing the game.
Oh, I can
so
speak
I didn't
to
feel
it. I can speak to it a bit. I was getting back in right at like 2008. So for a long time, synchros for like those of us who were playing in our library after school, we couldn't even really like afford them for the most part. Like they were still, like synchros they were ultra rares in like a lot of these sets. Like getting a synchro from Duelist Genesis was hard as a kid. You weren't getting packs often. And like the best synchro that you could hope to maybe pull is like a super rare, maybe a magical android. Maybe you got some stuff from the starter decks, like you had a Junk Warrior or a Gaia Knight. Iron Chain Dragon was a low rarity synchro that a lot of people had. But like generally we were still playing with a lot of our old stuff. And that era of Yu-Gi-Oh that we were coming out of was kind of like the end of the GX era. So Gladiator Beasts, Dark Armed Return, Light Sworns. But for filthy casuals like us, it was really more so just playing the best stuff you could get. Like maybe you had Dekoichi or Nimble Mamangas as your like kind of ways to get advantage or ways to special summon a little bit. We maybe had like some Monarchs in our deck if we could afford them. That era, the era of Monarchs was like leaving as like Glads and Lightsworns came into the fold.
Right.
But for us, we were always a few years behind the curve because we were just kids. And like, so Synchros felt especially weird because it demanded that our old decks find some kind of way to speed up, to like catch up in pace so we could hope to use these synchros.
I remember when I was getting back into the game in 2011, I wanted synchro monsters, but it was difficult. I had to get them from tins, I believe.
Yeah, okay, that's actually a great point. I remember when the first kind of set of tins came out, and that was how most of us were getting the decent synchros.
Yeah.
Again, pulling them from like Duelist Genesis and Crossroads of Chaos,
Nope.
not happening. We couldn't buy boxes. It's so wild to think about. Like today, like buying a box is like a normal thing because we're adults and you can just choose to buy a box. But
Yeah,
back
that says
then,
a lot about us, doesn't it?
it really does. but like for us, it's like I'm going grocery shopping with my grandmother and I like beg her to like let me get one pack worth of checkout. And that might be the only Yu-Gi-Oh I opened for
might be
a month. I don't know. So it's, and the rest I had to do with trades and like to kind of scrapping stuff together. And so as a result, like when those tins came out, and you could convince your parents to maybe get you like a $20 tin, or you could save up some allowance for a $20 tin and get that guaranteed Stardust Dragon or that guaranteed Black Rose or whatever. Huge game changer.
It was this tin, the 08 tin.
Yeah, the 08 collectible tins, wave 1.
Because like I remember, because I met Paul in about 2013.
Yeah.
I met Paul in 2013, and at the time I had some synchros, but I remember looking at all my synchros because I was learning about the secondary market. I noticed all my like Signer Dragon synchros had a tin, like a CT.
Yeah, CT collector 1001.
And I was like, oh yeah, all mine are worth nothing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny in an ironic way. Those tins sealed today are worth so much money.
Oh man,
those loads.
Mine were so beat up. I was carrying every card I had in those tins.
I will say though, I guess to get back on topic, because
we're
sorry guys, in our hour-long video, we're rambling about Yu-Gi-Oh again. How dare we? Special summons in general, I do think are like probably the biggest conversation piece in terms of gameplay that people have around like what divides modern and old Yu-Gi-Oh, retro Yu-Gi-Oh. But even special summons like have taken on such a different form over the years. Because we technically had them at the very start.
True, but not every special summon is made the same.
Yeah.
Because there were cards that were special summoned via other cards. There were cards like special summon themselves. There were cards that had extremely specific special summon conditions.
Dark Sage.
Yeah, that's very... yeah, guys.
Yeah.
No me monsters. Might as well have not been special summons at all. Unless you were using Envoy at the beginning.
Quick tangent, by the way. So in the last video when we were talking about fusions, we talked about Dark Sage, and somebody left a comment, and they actually clarified that, when you read out the effect of Dark Sage, that was the printing that said, when you succeed with the effect of Time Wizard, you summon it or whatever. Apparently, they had to actually change that in an errata to like when you call the coin right, because you could interpret succeed in Time Wizard's effect as getting heads or tails. Because you still resolved it. You succeeded in resolving the effect. And so like that was just a random thing. Anyway, sorry you were...
But yeah, not every special summon was made the same. So we had them in some of the earliest points in Yu-Gi-Oh! But the conditions around them weren't fun.
Yeah, I mean, basically, early on, like you said, like, a special summon, and I hate to, it sounds cliche, it was special.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
A lot of decks, you might never special summon in some games. Like, ever.
I mean, some of the monsters that special summoned were giving your opponent something you really didn't want. Who's the little guy that you could special summon from your hand.
Gillosaurus, yeah.
But your opponent got the special summon too.
Yeah, and also, like, it's funny because even if you were thinking about, like, being a kid at that time, Call of the Haunted and, like, stuff was actually not even all that accessible at the very start.
They weren't.
Later, they started kind of putting that in more structured decks and stuff, like Monster Reborn, Call of the Haunted. But even just having those wasn't always, like, a given. Later on, I think you start to see, you know, your Cyber Dragon type cards, and I remember the
self-sufficient special
the Fiend Mega Cyber could, like, summon itself.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Chaos monsters. But they were still very much like, it was an event when you special summon.
But like 5Ds, now the monsters were trying to multiply themselves.
Yeah. And that feels different, right?
Oh yeah.
Because I think we talked about this in the synchro video a little bit, or maybe the power creep video, probably the power creep video, where suddenly the monsters individually actually matter less. Like, I think this is something that distinguishes old and new Yu-Gi-Oh! In my eyes, is like, when you made a normal summon in Yu-Gi-Oh!, the monster was expected to stick around, right?
Like, supposed to do something.
You summon Breaker the Magical Warrior, or you summon, you know, like any like kind of beat stick type card, or even like an Exiled Force, it like had its one duty and it was gonna leave, and that was kind of a big deal. Or like it was a floater that's like waiting to die so it can float. But here, with 5Ds is where you kind of start to see not only some cards that can like summon themselves, but also cards that are not expected to stick around. Their stats, you pointed it out, I think, with like Rescue Rabbit and stuff, like Rescue Cat, where the stats of the monster being weak mean nothing.
Irrelevant. I couldn't tell you the stats on those things.
Because it didn't matter. They were going to like disappear and get some new monsters or whatever. And obviously, you know, the extra deck as a concept kind of really takes form here. It had been the fusion deck before, but
we weren't fusing like that.
People were not really fusing.
With the sole exception of
Gladiator Beasts.
Of course.
Now it's like, okay, these synchros are your extra deck, they're your toolbox.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a precursor for things to come where like Xyz and Links and stuff have more and more so become like, these are your tools. These are kind of your boss monsters. These are how you out things. These are how you play combos. Like, your main deck monsters' jobs changed, where they're not meant to be like, summon it, set 2 cards face down, and like, let it rock.
Yeah, your boss monster wasn't in your main deck anymore.
Yeah, and I think that does make the special summon conversation feel like diegetically like a really big difference.
The image of your deck had now changed. Like I said before, my boss monster is in my 40 card deck, but during the 5Ds era with synchro summoning, now your boss monster was something like Crimson Blader or Goyo Guardian, Stardust Dragon.
Brionic even. Like, yeah, just something like that. I mean, so I do think like the special summon change is what people point to the most. I think that special summons, and like this is gonna be me injecting just a personal opinion here, I don't actually have a problem with like a lot of special summoning per se. But I think that like there's kind of a point where people would get sick of it. Because this is one of the things that you hear, like, you know, the typical Yu-Gi Boomer argument is like they should limit special summons to like 3 per turn or 5 per turn, or what do you think about that? Like, I've never been a huge fan, but
a special summon limit could be a fun like side event kind of thing, but you can't put the genie back in the bottle once it's out. I mean, since 5Ds and synchro summoning, I mean, every new series brought a new summoning type, and it typically meant even more special summons. I mean, when we got Xyz monsters with Zexal, we were special summoning more than we did with synchro monsters.
Yeah.
And then when we got to Arc 5 with Pendulum monsters, we certainly were special summoning more.
And obviously Links.
And Links, it's got crazy. Like, you can't just go back.
Yeah,
Not
and I mean,
really.
I think like what you're almost saying the undercurrent of Yu-Gi-Oh! At this time is like fundamentally what it means to duel, what it means to be a duelist and play your deck is different. 5Ds into Zexal and beyond is the meaning of dueling is kind of quickly imposing your things onto the board. Like as early as Black Wings, right? Like I remember, you normal summon Shura, then Bora would special summon itself, Gale would special summon itself, like Sirocco would start with all these things. And like that was early 5D stuff, but like I think the plan was Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a fast game. Like you know, you move quick. It was cool. Turbo duels, right? Like buy these motorcycles, like
vroom vroom.
You're seeing an aesthetic change to the way that Yu-Gi-Oh is expected to be played, and I don't think that's like a bad thing. I mean, I think that was kind of a cool progression to the overall franchise aesthetic. There's also archetypes. I think that's another big one.
Yeah, because
archetypes are tough.
Archetypes fundamentally change the way that we deck build and how your turn progressed in a game. Before archetypes, there was so much luck and just chance-based BS in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, archetypes weirdly add an element of consistency to things.
Yeah. I mean, with archetypes came search cards.
Right.
With archetypes came like in archetype combos, which meant now your deck building was less predicated on I'm just running the 40 best cards that I can find. Now I'm running the 20 or so cards that all like interconnect to one another. They have to be worked together. They have to be together so that they can do their job. And then maybe the next 20 cards are the best cards I could find.
Yeah, it's interesting because like, you know, in old Yu-Gi-Oh, like you think of like a format like GOAT, you're kind of at the mercy of your opening hand. If you open with, you know, Kaiku and Breaker, the Magical Warrior, Exiled Force, like, you know, good stuff cards, good spell and traps, you're probably fine. But if you bricked, which I guess that term didn't exist back then, but you know, if you didn't get a good hand, there was not really any way to fix that outside of hopefully your deck building ratios were decent enough that you could survive a couple of turns, because obviously the pace was slower, you know, and then like kind of work your way into something good. But with archetypes, you know, you might have emergency call, or you might have like an in archetype floater that has some benefit over just a Mystic Tomato or a Giant Rat. You might even be more rewarded for running your archetype's Exiled Force equivalent card, even if it has worse stats or whatever, because it has the name of the archetype in its like title, and so that means it's searchable, it's recyclable, it somehow synergizes with everything else in your deck. You're more rewarded for running in archetype than out.
And I think that presented an interesting cliff for Yu-Gi-Oh players, because up until that point, deck building was something people like prided themselves on. And with the advent of archetypes, a portion of that was taken away. Certain cards had to be run together in order to get value out of them. And the way you valued cards was going to be different now.
Cards are viewed in the context of their archetype, as opposed to kind of as standalone things. If you want to play a certain card, you probably are going to have to play its archetype. And like, another thing too is just that, you know, duelist identity kind of, you know, when you were building your deck with your favorite 40 or 50 or 100 cards, you know, on the playground or whatever, it was the stuff that you liked, whereas now you kind of have to commit a little to an archetype. If you like the archetype, that's great. And Yu-Gi-Oh's done a great job. I will always commend Yu-Gi-Oh for like, it has kept the archetypes coming. They always manage to find like new gimmicks and art styles and like inspiration to pull from. But it still does mean that you have to tie your identity to an archetype. And some players really like that, but some people don't. Like some people I want the smorgasbord.
I want this to be 40 of my expertly chosen cards, and I want nothing to affect my ability to craft this deck.
Yeah.
And archetypes has changed the way that we valued cards and the way you built your decks. And for some people, that was already a step too far. Going a step further, archetypes changed the way that we dueled. The pace of the game had now changed. Now that resources could recur, games could go for much longer. And if your deck didn't have its recursion online, or not, I misspoke. Games could go longer or they could be a lot shorter. It kind of depended on what the archetypes that were being played were.
Yeah, and that's so true. I think like so many archetypes were like, you know, the games can move faster in the sense that like an archetype can access its cards faster and get moving faster. But in the case that a game goes long, an archetype is oftentimes still favored because you will have your recycling cards as opposed to maybe an older Yu-Gi-Oh! Where once your breaker's been used up, it's over. Once your whatever, you know, like your floaters, all these one-off cards, for the most part, once they're in the grave, they're in the grave. Like, maybe they get banished for like BLS Chaos Sorcerer. Maybe you use your one Monster Reborn or some Call of the Haunteds on them, but like, those aren't searchable, but like, with an archetype, that's just, we know that's not the case. I still say that like overall archetypes are a net positive in making Yu-Gi-Oh! A better card game. Like I think for like giving people more to quickly latch onto and quickly identify with.
I mean, I just wonder if archetypes was a card game thing or an anime thing. Did we create archetypes so that we could create characters in an anime? Or did we create archetypes so
For
that
game
for the
itself.
card game itself?
I still think it leans towards the anime led them. I think that GX specifically set out to give characters personalities through archetypes. Even though the archetypes at that time, like Venoms and Volcanics and
Moki.
they all sucked, but or, you know, most of them sucked. But like, I do think that that was a conscious decision to tie characters to a set of cards that they identify with, because that's probably easier to sell to kids than like, do you remember when like Bakura summoned this one random, the gross ghost of fled dreams? It's like random and out of nowhere, but like it's easier to market Jaden's elemental heroes. If you want to be like Jaden, you get the elemental hero. Like,
I never thought about it, but yeah, during DM we loved our characters, but there's a closeness that we could have with GX and on with characters than we could have with DM, because you could literally run a character's deck.
Right.
Or their strategy.
And expect
Like,
it to work.
As much as I loved, you know, Bones' deck and the cards that he played, that wasn't a strategy.
It wasn't.
I could gather those cards together and do nothing.
Yeah. It's funny because shout out to New Bone support that they finally retrained like 25 years later. But like, that's another thing too, is a lot of people don't realize with old anime decks, like people are like, I want to build like a Joey deck or a Bandit Keith deck or whatever. Like, in those times, in most episodes characters showed up and they actually only played like a total of like maybe 8 cards.
Yeah.
And so you want to build this deck in real life, but you realize, oh, my deck's got to be like 40 cards or more or whatever. And so suddenly it's like, you don't actually even know what the other 25 cards in Joey's deck are, and you have to just fill them with staples anyway or whatever. It's like there's no strategy there. But if you wanted to build a Cyrus Truesdale deck, there's at least something, there's more to go on. I think there's like a lot to be said about that. Just out of curiosity, do you have like a favorite archetype early on? Like, do you remember what your first archetype you built was?
My first archetype was probably the Ancient Gears.
Mm-hmm.
Up until then, I built my decks around types.
Yeah.
I had a Fiend deck.
I was a type guy.
I guess at the same time, I did try to put together a Destiny Hero deck. Boy, that was trash.
My first...
Clock Tower Prison was not
I don't know
good.
how they expected people to do that. You know, early archetypes were not good. One of the ones I built was a GX era one, but I don't think it showed up in the show, was Battery Man. Or maybe it showed up in the show, I don't know.
I don't remember.
But like, I played a Battery Man deck, and I remember it was fun. I liked that, like Battery Man AA. If you had like 3 of them, they would all have 3,000 attack or whatever. But if you had 2 of them, they'd both have 2,000. You know, is that whole thing?
Because that's going to happen all the time.
Yeah, well, I remember like finding Inferno Reckless Summon was like that one card. So if you could find a way to special summon a Battery Man AA, and then use Inferno Reckless Summon, you could summon 3 and like...
That reminds
and then you could use Short Circuit.
Yeah.
It blew up their board.
Alex had, because he used Infernal Reckless Summon in his Frog deck with Death Frog.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because if you had 3 of them, you could play Death Croaking.
Yeah.
And then blow up your opponent's board. And I just lose from there.
That's archetypes. I think like I think that they're a big one for people. The rest I kind of want to like speed run through because we've got like some quick things that like, I don't think they're like the reason someone necessarily hates new Yu-Gi-Oh, but I do think that they're like worth talking about. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk about kind of the pack structure. Like the way that packs were designed slightly changed
I mean, they still
over the years.
The rainbow, right?
The pack rainbow still existed and stuff. That's, by the way, like how like in different series, the cards will always follow a certain color pattern, or the packs will follow this. The point is, though, I wanted to talk about how like rarities kind of changed over time. I don't think this is like a huge thing, but I remember early on, sets had only like 1 secret rare in them.
Yep.
The GX era introduced the ultimate rare cards, and also the fact that like a card could come rare and ulti, or like super and ulti. I actually remember Brain Control was like that. Lightning Vortex was like that. Miracle Fusion was like that.
But also meant there were a lot of bad ultis. Just like random rares that no one ever wanted to use.
I sometimes hear people talk about like ghost rares as a part of this conversation. Like, I miss when ghost rares were in sets.
Ghost rares peaked with synchro monsters.
And I remember at the beginning of 2016 when they started finally including a super in every pack. Every pack was guaranteed to have a super rare. Does any of this like feel like it kind of does anything for you? Like, did it change? Because
I mean, so as a kid, I never really pulled an ulti, so I don't even know if I knew they existed, to be honest.
I don't think I was opening enough packs to know like, because I knew about ultimates. In my mind, I almost didn't even know that you could pull them. I thought that they were like only at like special events or like prizes or
I remember
something.
looking through binders and I'd always see these Ghost Rare Synchro monsters and they look so crazy. So to me, like Ghost Rare was just one of those parts of Yu-Gi-Oh! That's like I aspire to have.
Yeah, it's like a legendary like thing. You know, maybe I'll get one. I will say, I mean, like with products today, I guess they maybe don't have the same like aura or whatever. But I also don't. I don't think that this is like what killed Yu-Gi-Oh! Or changed Yu-Gi-Oh! Forever or anything like that. I think it's just I wanted to bring it up because I know for some people, they seem to have a bit of a yearning for like the way old packs were, you know.
But old packs weren't that great, yo. I'm not gonna.
Pull rates in old packs weren't great.
They weren't, man.
Yeah, I know people complain about like, you know, I didn't get my value out of this box, but like in the old days,
Just
you
getting
weren't.
supers was tough.
Yeah, it was a little tough. Like pull rates weren't good. Here's another one. Problem-solving card text.
Huh.
This is very like card game focused strictly, so I think this only really affected people who were already playing the card game. But this is when in like 2013 or so, they sort of unified the way that card text was written to clarify things. You can know like what targets, someone doesn't target, what's a cost to activate an effect, and what order things resolve.
I'm very confused because like they announced it, but like none of my cards had it because of course I had nothing but older cards at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, so what does this mean? I have to like go back to this like PDF and
Double
check every time.
Well, so what it was like they had to reprint a lot of old stuff.
Yeah.
And there's still cards that don't have problem-solving card text, if you can believe it.
Oh, don't we know?
Yeah, there's a few cards that still don't have it. And they're weird because like when they reprint the retro packs, they don't use PSCT, but that's kind of supposed to be part of the sales pitch of it. It's like it's got the old text. Old Yu-Gi-Oh! Text, I will say, was like some bullshit sometimes.
Yeah, they were just kind of getting by with translating some of those cards.
They were just saying, like, one that I always will remember is like Mask of Restrict, where like, you know, neither player can contribute monsters. Yeah. I remember the very first printing, or at least the one that I got, was like, no matter what, neither player can contribute monsters on the field or whatever. It's like, in a post-PSCT world, hearing the words, no matter what, sounds almost like whiny or like, you know, like some kid on the playground
it feels so extra.
Making a custom card where like, no matter what, you're not allowed to get my blue eyes off the field. Like it's, you know.
I remember Mask of Restrict because I was like, can I not ritual summon anymore?
Yeah. I will say for problem-solving card text, I think that it added a certain maturity to the game. Like the card game, it sort of represented a game where they were like, okay, we know that we plan for this game to like run many, many years into the future, so we got to find a universal language for things.
Which, you know, it would have been nice if we started like that, but Yu-Gi-Oh's an old game. It is what it is. But I don't know if anyone hopped off the boat behind problem-solving card text. I feel like that was objectively a good thing.
Right. It's true. Another one is Master Roll 4. I think this actually probably could have been in quite the big category because I do think that this was when a lot of people legitimately did jump off the boat. I almost feel like it, you know, we talked about this a lot in our What Mechanic Killed Yu-Gi-Oh! Video, but changing the game board, pendulums, links, like fundamentally that is always a recipe for disaster with certain people.
That was a bad, like, because if you think about it from like a marketing perspective, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game board was associated with the brand. It was recognizable, and people had already bought in on it.
Yeah.
By changing it and then changing it drastically at that, I mean.
Yeah, changing it. So it's funny because changing it with pendulums was already weird. It kind of power creeps your old mat. and you have to like learn this mechanic, and it even looked kind of gross on the mats. Like it felt like it had just like shoved itself in between the deck and like the extra.
There was a neatness to the Yu-Gi-Oh game board. It was just a simple rectangle.
Yeah, that clean.
Your zones all lined
consistent.
up perfectly.
And now it's like this gross thing here that like mini decks wouldn't even use those two zones. So they felt, you know. But then Master Rule 4, while it did clean that back up by adding, you know, put them on the sides of the mat or whatever, the left and right most spell and trap card zone, that extra monster zone stuff imposed so much on people.
Yeah.
You can't play your Blackwings anymore. You can't play your whatever your favorite Xyz deck, your Heraldic Beast, because you have to use these link monsters to earn space to summon them out. And people hate being told that like the thing that I used to be able to freely do, I can't do anymore.
I mean, I feel like this is truly like Konami's first like self-made cliff for Yu-Gi-Oh.
It was very much, you know.
And they herded the entire community right off of it.
Yes, it was very much you're either in or you're out.
They said we can't go back. Then they're like, okay, we can kind of go back, but not all the way.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, they reversed it. I think that they knew that was a reviled thing, but I still feel like the effects are felt because.
I mean, there are people who dropped off at that moment and they never came back.
Because there is a certain point where like, and I've talked about this in videos and stuff before, where like when a lot of little things add up, like some of the stuff that we're talking about in this video, when a lot of little things add up that kind of annoy you about a game, but you know, you kind of are like, well, whatever, I'll tolerate this. And then one thing, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back, one thing happens, it's like, sure, someone can tell you a few years later, oh, like they reverted it back, but like you're already out.
Yeah, I'm done, I'm good.
You found another game, you've moved on. I hate that those people oftentimes still tend to be the ones who like, will show up to maybe like trash Yu-Gi-Oh a bit. Like they'll still be like, oh, this ruined it, whatever for me. It's like, okay, well, move on with your life. But I don't blame them for necessarily leaving when they did.
Simulators, the advent of like the fan-made simulator, I think that pose a significant cliff in Yu-Gi-Oh. Now this one not being Konami made, it's fan-made. And I think they were a big cliff because now we were able to start playing Yu-Gi-Oh as much as we wanted to.
Right.
And it turned out that we were playing Yu-Gi-Oh at an exponential rate. People were getting hundreds of Yu-Gi-Oh games in a day. When like how many games of Yu-Gi-Oh do you think you got in
at a local?
Yeah.
A day of
what was your
locals?
peak number of games
Oh,
before
man.
we had like Dueling Book?
Maybe 30. I don't know. Again,
You got
I'm not
30
very-
games in one day?
I mean, I think if I was like maybe 25, 30, something like that.
Oh, you was a fiend.
No, but like that's like my max.
No, I guess.
I like we're in the gym. That's my max. No, but I mean, you're right. I remember when, like, technically, fan sims and like little Yu-Gi-Oh sims have existed for a long time,
Sure.
but they were always like in the deep, deep crevices.
And a lot of times they're paid for services.
Sometimes there were paid services. The first like mainstream one I remember anyway was Dueling Network.
Oh, Dueling
which
Network.
I remember when that came out. That was so much fun. I played that all the time. But like there was, I guess, so generally, to be clear, fan sims are a net positive overall. Like
Right.
them existing is good. But, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with what you're saying about this, I think that the fact that they existed did mean that the rate with which you can improve and learn and kind of optimize and stuff also meant that maybe Yu-Gi-Oh for some people, lost its sense of like, you know, I don't want to say identity, but
I'm
like
gonna say whimsy.
maybe the whimsy.
Like, up until that point, your Yu-Gi-Oh experience was kind of your own. How you developed how you built, and
How you
developed
play
your deck,
tested,
and
how you built-
you developed
yeah.
as a player was kind of just your experience, because nobody really knew much better than you did. But when these simulators came out, and people started playing it in an insane amount of Yu-Gi-Oh.
People learn so much faster.
Now,
They develop.
formats were developing much faster. Metas were being defined much faster. People were starting to know what's good, what's bad at an alarmingly fast rate compared to before.
And I do think that maybe that would have come with, and I remember feeling this a bit myself, it kind of comes with, I guess, the floor of Yu-Gi-Oh increases. So the average player kind of has access to more of that. But I do think that, I guess, some player individuality might feel lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to tie that into like social media and content creation. 'Cause at
Yeah.
the same time, now now that we're able to play as much Yu-Gi-Oh as we want, now we can start sharing that information through YouTube videos, through
Discord, Facebook
groups, Discord.
You know, that is so true. I take this from the experts here. You know, as someone who's been in the Yu-Gi-Tube space for a really long time, even before I got into Yu-Gi-Tubing myself, I watched like Yu-Gi-Oh videos. Back in the like olden days, so much was different. Like Yu-Gi-Tube was oftentimes just like people's trade binders.
Yeah.
Like they'd either be like opening some packs or showing you their trade binder and like, you know, doing online trades. Shout out to like Pojo and stuff like that, if anybody remembers. But also like that was what content was. And it sort of began to shift and morph as you could start to do more like guides, more meta reviews, more like here's a meta tier list, here's a how to beat this thing.
Like gameplay videos were like now they were like being uploaded or rapidly.
Yeah, you can just rapidly upload that. And again, it's a net benefit in terms of people being able to learn, people being able to improve, but I could see where somebody might feel that, you know, the idea of their unique homebrew deck and maybe even their unique talents as a player, knowing some sick tech card that's like very obscure, well now that's broad knowledge.
Because now there was a right and a wrong way to play your deck.
That's true too. You were
It
sort of
was
told
like
that.
objective things. Like I have my Lightsworn deck. I run 1 Wolf, 3 Luminas,
Whatever. And I'm teching a couple of weird cards in here.
If someone just looks at your deck and this is horrible, this is all wrong.
Yeah, this isn't optimal.
Like,
And I think a lot of people enjoyed that about Yu-Gi-Oh! Where even if you had made it past like the hurdle of hating synchros or Xyz, it's just like still you could build your deck in a way that maybe felt like it was mostly normal and accepted, but like you had your own
and maybe
spice and personality in there.
Maybe your deck was bad, but everyone didn't know your deck was bad.
Yeah, now there's like a point of comparison that is built in. And I don't think that that's necessarily like probably why people maybe left, but I will say I think it is indirectly something that people cite even when they don't know that they are.
I think it put up a barrier to return some like older returning players.
Right.
Because you're coming back to Yu-Gi-Oh with your own ideas of how you used to play and how you intend to play going forward.
Yeah.
And people are like, nah, bro, there's rules.
Yeah.
3 ofs of this, 3 ofs of that, 3 ofs of this. Don't run this, don't run that.
Expectations. And
expectations of like spending money too.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, like, money's always been there. We're actually planning on doing a video about like kind of Yu-Gi-Oh and how it got to be as expensive as it is, or was it maybe even always that way? So we'll get into it more probably in that vid. But I will say the expectation of buying cards, I didn't have that on this list, but I'm glad you mentioned that.
Well, because now deck lists have to be optimal.
It's not even just that they had to be optimal. I think that even just the idea that like you as a kid or a teen or whatever were making a deck with what you had, but now you're kind of expected to buy things and you're able to buy things. Because like even if you maybe could afford it, it wasn't as easy to just like go on eBay and just get cards and stuff.
No.
Like, you know, now there's obviously TCG Player and all these other ways of like, if you need a card, you can get the card. Like you're not limited to your local scene or your group of friends and who just does or doesn't have it.
Steal my mom's debit card. I have to find a card shop, find some way to buy the card with my mom's debit card, then return the debit card.
Funny story, I did use my mom's credit card once to buy like a Dark Lord Zerato or something on eBay. Got in a lot of trouble. Ended up like trading that Zerato for some crap later on. I was trying to buy like a dark counterparts deck. You remember Phantom Darkness had the dark counterparts, like there's Dark Horus and Dark Nephthys.
I love Dark Horus.
Yeah, so I was trying to build that deck. I hit a pretty big roadblock when I couldn't have Allure of Darkness because it was like an ultra that cost like $80. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I do think that content creation and social media have, for the people who are in.
Oh God, it just reminded me of how Allure of Darkness was a staple.
It was.
It's
crazy.
Staple.
It's crazy, crazy, crazy. Like $80 or more, I don't remember. But like, like content creation, social media, they change things. There's more information access. One last thing I'll add to that is I remember like, you know like how like cards get revealed from the OCG and now they're just like, they're on the internet like that. Like they're translated within minutes and they're like, there's infographics and stuff. The old heads listening will remember a site called Shriek TCG. They did like they used to be the ones who would do like the translations of OCG cards. And like if you knew about it, it was like somewhat niche and it was a whole thing.
I didn't know about this one.
Yeah, it's like 2000. We're talking like 2008, 9. Something
But I guess,
like that.
but I was such a Yu-Gi-Oh
Forums.
casual. I didn't realize that outside of Shonen Jump manga, I didn't realize Yu-Gi-Oh cards were made in Japan and sold before they got here.
Well, that's the thing. The way that like 4Kids with the show and all that, like they kind of want you to just believe like Yu-Gi-Oh cards are just a thing. You don't view it as Western Eastern. It's Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Because I remember when GX was about to come out and they were showing off the sneak preview of Cyber Dragon in the manga, and I was like, oh man, that's great. That's gonna be so cool when it comes out. Like in my mind, well, GX doesn't exist yet. Nobody has or has seen this card before.
Yeah.
Golly, to be blissfully ignorant.
One last thing, speaking of GX, is a great segue into this final point. I do think that there has been a separation from the anime, and I think it is a conscious one.
Okay, you can't think. I mean, there is literally no anime.
Well, more than that, though. So, here's my little tinfoil hat theory, almost, that I'm going to add at the end. So, we have not had a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Formal Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, because the Rush Duel ones are tied to Rush Duel, and that's not even in the West, so.
Right.
We're going to exclude Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s and Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush.
Well, Rush Duels is in the West, just not in
Duel
the
Links
traditional
and whatever.
format.
But we haven't had a sequel to Vrains. Right. Vrains is the last mainline traditional Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. And since then, I've voiced how I think that to make the original point, I think that has changed some perception of Yu-Gi-Oh! There's kind of this idea that there's, an anime existing helps funnel in new people, funnel in new interest. There's an anime to follow. I liked how with Vrains, decks like Salamangreat and Altergeist and Trickstars and Goki were actually meta decks as they were coming out. As they were being shown on the screen, they would come out in the game, and they were even good decks. I think that was a great, peak, anime synergy with card game.
Hated it because I didn't like Vrains, so I hated those.
Yeah, I didn't really, I didn't resonate much with Vrains, but that was I think a good thing for a good coexistence to happen. The thing is now we haven't got a new Yu-Gi-Oh anime, and whether or not we'll get a new one is kind of up in the air. Hopefully we do, that'd be great. But my theory is that I think that, I don't know if it's a theory now, because now that the Chronicles stuff is out, I think that the TCG has kind of been making a slow, conscious effort over the years to divide itself, divorce itself from the anime a little bit. From Yu-Gi, from kind of characters in general. You'll oftentimes
start calling the game O.
That's right. It's just O. Oh, you have to make an O face when you say it. No, but I do think that that kind of has been, I think they want the branding of the game and the identity of the game to be just separate from Yu-Gi-Oh! Because now you're seeing they're sort of developing these mascots like Ecclesia, the SP and IP Little Knight, Masquerena, Sky Striker Ace Ray, the Evil Twins, Eldritch, kind of these monsters that they are.
Is Eldritch a mascot?
Well, they use him a lot in Master Duel's early marketing, and then he got the Pot of Extravagance thing. I think that they're trying to take these card game, these TCG creations. No one in the show is using Evil Twins,
Right.
And turn them into the brand of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now. Have they done a good job with it?
They're doing better, I can say.
I don't know what to say, but that's my...
But I mean, now I don't know if that's completely within the scope of this video. That's less so of a cliff and more so of a lack of a
direction.
ramp.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know that that's how Yu-Gi-Oh! Lost its identity, but I do think that it is a difference in identity.
No, I think you're right. I think it is a cliff because I keep forgetting that people did hop on the game with Vrains. When Vrains ended, then some of those people were probably like, well, maybe I'm not going to be into it, but maybe when the next anime comes out, I'll be back again.
And there is no next.
There never was. Yeah. So I guess, for some people, that it probably was a cliff.
So the moral of the story is we can fix everything in Yu-Gi-Oh! With a reboot. No, that's generalization.
No, you actually might have passed that up.
Yeah.
It's been too long, I think. And again, Maze of Muertos has Bones cards in it.
I mean, it needs something. I don't know.
Maybe we could reboot it. I'd like to see the Paradox Brothers using the new support.
Or give me a Yu-Gi-Oh! 9. I'll take anything at this point. I'm desperate. Okay, I guess that's a good place to stop it.
Yeah, it's a good enough stopping point.
Cool. We'd love to hear from you guys, of course. For you personally, where do you think the divide between modern and old school Yu-Gi-Oh! is? Is it?
What like cliffs did you like fall through, or which cliffs did you survive?
Yeah, you know, given that a lot of people do take breaks and then come back, we'd love to hear what that was like. Shout outs to everybody who's been commenting on these videos so far. They're a great place for discussion. It's a safe space. We don't, you know, there's no Yugi boomers and whatever is here. Like,
But
it's
if
just,
you disagree
you know.
with us, it's a very unsafe space.
Anyways, if you want to watch a video where we actually talk about the different summoning types, that's to say like Synchro, Fusion, Xyz, Pendulum Link, or all that stuff, and like kind of which ones changed the game, what killed Yu-Gi-Oh! We did do a video about that. You can click it right up here. Right there. Without further ado, we'll see you all in the next one.
Pass turn.